Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are tuning in. Today, I am honored. Stop that again.
Mhm.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Sheri, the founder of the Live Today Foundation and the host of the Live Today show. Today, I'm honored to speak with someone whose journey not only reflects courage and resilience, but also represents a voice we don't hear from often enough. A male survivor of cancer and lymphedema. His story echoes so much of my own, from the fight for proper treatment to the painful loss of a beloved career. But beyond the pain is a fierce determination to rise, to reinvent, and to inspire. It's my privilege to welcome him to this space today, where together we hope to shine a light on what so many endure in silence. Michael Kilada, thank you so much for your willingness to speak with me today.
Sheri, thank you so much for having me and for giving me this opportunity to talk today. Um,
Thank you
I'm
again.
very happy to share with everybody, and I'm very excited. And I thank you all for tuning in. And let's get to it.
All right. Hey, first question. When, first of all, I want you to just tell us what you were diagnosed with. And when did you first notice something was wrong? And
Sure.
what was that journey to diagnoses
Oh
like?
boy.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
So
doozy.
that's been a long journey. Um, well, I first noticed something was wrong 53 years ago, but I'm just joking. Um, I first noticed something was wrong about 6 or 7 years ago. Um, I had a small lump in my groin, kind of where my underwear line sits. Um, and I brought it to doctors' attentions repeatedly, but it was usually dismissed as a swollen lymph node or something related to a past hernia surgery I'd had or something like that. So it had been brushed off for quite a while. And in the time since I noticed that, I've gone through quite a medical journey. I've had two hernia repairs. I've had a hydrocele, a varicocele. I had three surgeries for MRSA in 1 week. Um, and I got COVID and I got hit by a car. So, on top of all of those things, I decided I never want to see doctors again. I never want to go to the hospital again. Um, and then in 2023, I was on a photo shoot for my latest collection on location, and I fell down the stairs and broke my arm. Um, and I managed to work through the whole day with a broken arm because I was on location. Um, and the next day, when I got back to the city, I went to urgent care and they didn't set it properly, and I had to have surgery on it with a plate and four screws um, implanted in my forearm. The funny thing about this accident was it triggered this little lump, which automatically just started growing out of nowhere. And I remember one day getting into the shower and I was like, oh my God, what is this thing? So I went back to the doctor's office and I spoke to a urologist there who nonchalantly said, oh, that's probably cancer. And I said, oh, great. And it was right around the holidays in 2023. So I went through testing and I was diagnosed with a rare cancer called myxoid liposarcoma, which is a soft tissue sarcoma that occurs between layers of muscle tissue. Um, Thankfully enough, it was contained between the layers of muscle tissue and didn't really metastasize. But by the time I went in for surgery, it was about 10 centimeters big, which is approximately the size of a grapefruit. Um, so I went into surgery in March of 2024, and it was a 6 hour surgery with multiple surgeons on hand. They removed the tumor along with two lymph nodes, which I will get back to. They performed a vascularized bypass and then reconstructed the affected area because of all the negative space that was left. Um, I was hospitalized for a week after that and went home with 3 drainage lines sewn into my leg, and had to manage that. And then, just as I was starting to feel like myself again, whatever that was, it was time to start radiation. Radiation began in late May of 2024, and it was 5 days a week for 7 weeks. And I don't know how familiar everybody is with radiation. I would imagine if they're listening to this, they are. It's not the ideal thing to do in the summer. And I felt like I was being cooked for all intents and purposes. It was brutal. Um, and I had swelling, from the day I went home from the hospital. And the doctor said, "Oh, that's just post-op swelling. Just keep it wrapped. You'll be fine." Uh, it never got fine. Um, when I got to radiation, it just aggravated it more. And I would go home and my leg would be the size of a balloon. Um, when radiation ended, I just found myself with swelling that was just getting worse. My leg felt like I was lugging a cement block around, and doctors were still brushing it off, saying it's post-op swelling. It's post-op swelling. And then I spoke to my primary doctor, who's been my doctor for a long, long time. And he said, "This looks like lymphedema to me." And I would get it checked out by somebody who can validate that. Um, so it turned out it was lymphedema, which doctors still reluctantly wanted to categorize it as that.
Michael, let me
Um,
stop you there. Let me stop you
mhm,
there
sure.
because this is a significant point that we need to drive home.
Right.
So your oncologist, your the cancer surgeon, the surgeon that removed the cancer, and then
Hmm.
your radiation oncologist, both these individuals saw the swelling,
Yeah.
continued your treatment in order to remove the cancer, but
Yeah.
again, still attributed to quote unquote some swelling, and it took your primary care doctor
Right.
to say, I think that this may be lymphedema, and
Yeah.
you need to go and get this confirmed. Now, here's the
Hmm.
interesting thing is that the doctors that would usually confirm it should be the doctors who
Who called it out?
diagnosed it. And that would be your medical oncologist, your radiation oncologist, your cancer surgeon.
Yeah.
These are the doctors that need to be having the conversations with you prior to surgery,
Right.
prior to chemotherapy, prior to starting radiation, that lymphedema is a real risk.
Yeah.
So, point to take home, those of you that are listening, as
Hmm.
patients, you must advocate for yourself. And if
Yeah.
you are receiving a diagnosis of cancer, it should be expected and it is prudent upon any doctor that is treating a patient along any of their treatment journey for cancer to have that
100%.
lymphedema discussion because
100%.
mentioning lymphedema should be just as commonplace as mentioning chemotherapy,
Sure.
radiation, follow-up treatment. Because there is that expectation that unless you monitor for it, be on the lookout for it, and do what you can to do to prevent it, expect that you're gonna get it.
Right.
So that's why these conversations are so important. So now your primary care doctor says, "Hey, I think this is lymphedema. You need to go and get this checked out." Now,
Hmm.
obviously, we're having this conversation because you've been diagnosed with lymphedema. But now
Right.
I think it's important for individuals to hear how lymphedema impacted your career as a fashion designer
Yeah.
and your personal identity.
Yes. Well, I want to add something to what you were saying as well.
Mhm.
Um, I like most people, have never heard of lymphedema. And before I went in for surgery, I never knew what lymphedema was. And I was assured that there will be some swelling post-op, and then I'll be back to normal. I didn't know about lymphedema until halfway through radiation. Um, and that is something that I would also, I wish in hindsight that I knew, because I might not have opted for the radiation, or I might have gone a less aggressive route with things. Um, but I just wanted to tack that onto what you were saying.
And
Um,
Michael, let me add, because again, as a patient, unaware of technology out there
mhm,
that is designed to monitor for lymphedema and prevent it, your options were for you, you said, I may have chosen a less aggressive
right,
form of treatment. When as a patient, you shouldn't have to think about
right,
choosing to get
sure,
less treatment and carrying that burden of, well, will it come back because I wasn't aggressive enough.
right,
Now, knowing this, patients now who will listen to this now will just say, well, no, I don't have to be less aggressive. I just need to ask the question,
right.
do you have a lymphedema management program in place? If you do, what is it?
What
If
is it?
you don't, where can I go to get monitored?
Right.
So you should not have to cut back on your treatment. You simply needed to be added to a lymphedema monitoring program. So sorry to interrupt you, but go ahead.
Oh, not at all. I mean, I'm going to be jumping in a couple of times as well, because there are points I want to touch on there. But let me get back to your question. In terms of my career as a designer, um, fashion has been, I could say, my first love easily. I remember when I was a little boy, I would stand in front of the TV and watch the Sonny and Cher show and just be dumbfounded with how glamorous she was in these fabulous gowns and having the greatest time. And since I was that young, I dreamt about how cool would it be to create something that beautiful that people will feel that great wearing. Um, and it's always been my obsession, I would say, since I was a kid. Um, I followed a strange career path. I graduated as a mechanical engineer at the behest of my lovely family. Um, and I hated engineering. So I worked in finance for 6 years before one day waking up and saying, what the hell am I doing? And I quit my job and found a job in the fashion industry and put myself through fashion school at night. Um, and I fought tooth and nail for it. And it was really hard times, but I think it was probably one of the best times in my life because I finally took a stand and was doing what I needed to do for myself. Um, Fashion is a very visual industry. And of course, you need to know what the heck you're doing, but you also have to look the part. And I love clothing, I love fashion. I was always impeccably dressed, well polished, my hair cut, fresh haircut, freshly shaven, the whole 9 yards. And it's also a very competitive world. And I busted my hump to not just survive in it, but succeed in it. I did very well. I was creative director at Ralph Lauren for 10 years. Um, and I had a lot of very high profile positions, and I was respected throughout the industry. I traveled the world to work with factories and go on shopping trips. And I've been all over the world basically for my business. Um, when COVID came around, the first thing to go were the fashion designers because when everybody was in lockdown and wearing sweatpants, nobody needed fashion design. But I saw that as the opportunity to launch my own business. and I started an evening wear brand, which is, going back to good old Cher in the 70s. I started an evening wear brand doing custom evening wear and bridal gowns for, you know, society ladies. I was a one-person show, and I was fully self-funded, and I was chief cook and bottle washer in this business. So I couldn't really miss a beat. Um, but then cancer and lymphedema came around and took a sledgehammer to all my plans, and everything was shattered. Um, I now have chronic swelling in my right side from my ankle up to my waist and into my torso. Um, I can't wear any of the fabulous clothes I have because they don't fit me. I can barely get shoes on some days. Um, and I can't stand for more than 10 minutes or sit for more than 10 minutes without painful swelling to blow my leg up. Um, so it's really taken me out of everything. It's taken me out of life, basically. Um, I have become a hermit and am kind of embarrassed to go out because I feel, I don't want to be out in sweatpants all the time, wearing a compression stocking and sneakers. I feel like a schlub. I want to wear my nice clothes and I can't. I want to go out and socialize, but I can't. Um, I've not been able to work, and the emotional toll of that, as well as the financial toll of that, is horrible. Um, I used to love going out to eat and traveling and going to the theater and treating my family or treating my friends to whatever. And now I can't do any of that anymore. I'm surviving on disability income, which doesn't even cover my rent. And doctors don't seem to really be bothered by this. They think, oh, he's a fashion designer, he's an airhead, whatever, whatever. Um, I made a very good salary and I had a very good life. And if I wanted something, I was able to do it. If my mother wanted something, I was able to give it to her. If my sister or one of my friends wanted something, I enjoyed treating them to it. And now I have been reduced to this person living on, you know, public assistance. Um, and I don't think that it's acceptable for the medical profession to blow me off the way they have. And they have blown me off. I mean, I've been ghosted by my doctors for calling them and demanding answers or demanding explanations. And when you mentioned the lymphedema treatment program. Yes, they had one, um, but I couldn't get an appointment for about 3 months. And then when the 3 months came around, I could get a sporadic appointment here and there, but they were very adamant with me that I need to be consistent with my lymphedema therapy and I need to be going 2 to 3 times a week and consistent with my bandaging. And I said, all right, great, great, get me the appointments. And nobody could do anything. So if I didn't have lymphedema back then, they caused it by having me sit around and wait for it. And that just burns my burns my blood. I don't know how else to say it, but it's just,
Michael,
you know,
you you touched on, wow, it's so much to unpack there because I think one of the main things to drive home, and I'm going to try to say this because I am both physician and patient, so I'm trying to walk that line between my fellow physicians and other healthcare practitioners and what it's like to be a patient. But I want my fellow physicians and other healthcare practitioners to listen to what Michael has just said. This was a man who was successful as a fashion designer. I mean, dressed to the nines, body to the nines. The man was into his fitness. I have seen pictures of him, okay? So the man had it together. And I don't necessarily think it's so much that they were, oh, this man is an airhead and, fashion designer, woo woo. What I really think is happening in the healthcare industry is that the physicians that are in the field of treating cancer have become so focused with those blinders on and that little bit in their mouth telling them where to go. Their main goal is ridding you of cancer. But
100%.
nobody is thinking about the survivorship of that
Right.
person on the other side of this diagnosis. I promise you, the physicians who have lived through a cancer diagnosis, they get it now. They understand it. But the doctors that are not, either have not had the diagnosis or they haven't had someone close enough to them. It takes that, or listening to the right story. That's why I like driving these stories home and putting them in the face and in front of my fellow healthcare practitioners, because this is what you reduce us to.
Yeah.
You focus on getting the cancer cells out, but now you're left with two individuals who have had to walk away from their career, who for me, because now it's been 15 years, I've learned how to, socialize more and kind of come out of my shell. But I too, I'm a single woman. I don't like putting on that big oven mitt at night before I go to bed, thinking about, okay,
Sure.
well, if I do get a boo, now I got to ask him, look, is something happening?
Hmm.
Because I'm about to put the sleeve on. With the
Right.
big
Yeah.
sleeve on, nothing is happening. So you cannot take
100%.
a patient and reduce that patient to feeling like they're nothing, like they're not contributing to life, like they have to
Hmm.
find a new sense of worth when
Right.
there is something that you can do prior that will
Right.
leave them more whole,
Right.
sound, fit,
Right.
encouraged, motivated, rather than depleted after they have completed treatment.
Yep.
You drove that home.
Yep.
You drove that home because the same things, you're treated on a different part of the country than me, and different parts of the country than other people that I have interviewed. And we're all hearing the same thing. It's just
Yep.
some swelling. We weren't in a lymphedema monitoring program. Then when we get diagnosis, we'll go to physical therapy, keep up with your manual lymphatic drainage. You'll be okay. You survived cancer.
Yeah.
But now I'm living on disability income. I got to buy new
Right.
clothes. I don't feel good. I don't look good. Not in my mind. I don't feel like me. Now
Yeah.
you've left me feeling like not me. And then
Right.
now I'm dismissed. I'm not,
Right.
I'm just dismissed.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And my next question was going to be your frustrating experiences with insurance and medical providers, but I mean, you've answered some of it. Being
Oh, don't even get me started because I can go on and on and on about that.
when you
Um,
get stuff covered, it's a
uh,
shame.
I'm
One
sorry.
disease caused another. Your
Yeah.
cancer treatment
Hmm.
caused another disease.
Yeah.
And yet now, when you're using the same insurance, trying to get treatment for this new disease caused by the treatment of the other disease, now you
Hmm.
can't get the coverage that you need.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the absurdities I've had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, insurance denied my radiation treatment because they said it wasn't medically necessary. So for a cancer patient who needs radiation, I didn't want radiation. I didn't say, oh, it'll be fun to like get radiated for 7 weeks. Um, but I had to spend hours and hours and hours on the phone begging random people to allow me to have radiation. And I thought that was ridiculous.
It was.
And, the ridiculous things doctors said and the ridiculous things that they had me go to a therapist there, the absurd things that the therapist said. I was like, they would tell me most people would love to have your body. I said,
You have
okay.
to have your body
Yeah.
with the
When I,
swelling.
yeah. And, one of them went as far as to say, this is nothing. You should see some of my breast cancer patients with arms that look like tree trunks. And I said, okay, that doesn't make me feel better. That doesn't help me in any way. And they're not sitting here right now. I'm sitting here right now. And my favorite one was, can't you just buy new clothes?
Michael, Michael.
Yeah,
Oh, I hope this interview hits certain venues and outlets because our medical professionals need to hear this.
yeah.
They need to hear this because I've heard similar. I have been in the presence where they did not know that I was a medical doctor. I was
Hmm.
just attending with a friend. And I
Yeah,
heard medical professionals say some of the same things to my friends. I just, emotional intelligence is important. And
right.
clearly, we need to teach more of that in
Oh my
medical
God.
school, to the nurse practitioners, in PA school,
Oh my
in
God.
nursing school. We're missing that. You can't compare somebody, tell a war story to somebody that's going through, and that's supposed to make that person that's going through right in front of you feel better.
Right.
Just like our
Right.
parents used to tell us when we wouldn't finish all of our food. I don't know if your mom
Yeah.
ever said this. Oh, but there's kids over in Africa starving.
I
It's like,
used to say, well, let
can we
them have the
send them my
food.
food?
Yeah, exactly. I used to say the same smart remark.
Wow. Well,
Um,
Michael, we met because you reached out to Live Today
yeah,
for compression
yeah,
socks. And I know that the compression socks that we sent you came at a crucial time. What did that
I
moment
love
mean
them.
for
Yeah.
you?
First of all, I'm very thankful for Live Today. I'm very thankful for you, and for your kindness and your your humanity and your, generosity and somebody who could relate to what I was saying. Um, because I felt like I was just yelling into the wind and nobody was listening to me. Um, I'd been blown off by everybody. I still have not been able to get the compression garments that were prescribed to me 9 months ago because of a lot of egos, and I don't want to get into it. But I found Live Today when I gave up and I said, you know what? I'm going to go on Amazon and buy myself some compression garments so I have something. And somehow, I think on NLN or National Lymphedema Network or something, there was a link that took me to your page. And I said, whoa, what's this? And, I wasn't sure if I would be eligible for it or not because it was mostly sleeves. But then I reached out to you and you were just amazing. And it was the first kind thing I've heard in so long that it just blew me away. And the compression socks you sent were fabulous. I mean, I don't know if you know what I ordered at the end of the day, but I got those camouflage ones that are
Yes.
very cool and comfy, and they don't feel like those old lady granny stockings that, they give you at the doctor's office. Um, and it just felt like something a normal human being would want to wear, not, you know, these horrible compression garments that, the doctors recommended.
Yes.
Um, and I just, the one of the things this whole ordeal has taught me is how powerful acts of compassion can be. And, a small word or a small gesture or a smile can turn someone's day around who you don't even know what they're going through. And that's how getting these compression socks turned my day around when I got them, because I was literally just thrown in the towel about trying to get my prescription garments, and this rolled around. Um,
Perfect timing. I had no idea. You and I, we never talked about that level of detail. I just knew that you found me, and it's interesting because when I started with the Live Today Foundation, out of my own frustration, when I was diagnosed and discovered, I'm like, oh, my insurance company's not going to pay for these. Okay.
yeah.
Um, whoa, what about all these other patients that are living with it? And I started the foundation. We did start off with just doing sleeves and gauntlets, and then we added
Hmm.
gloves, and then we added the knee highs, and now we're offering bras and camisoles. But what is
Right.
so interesting is that, and initially we were just doing breast cancer because I'm going based upon my
Hmm.
story, right? But then I
Sure.
started getting so many requests. I have Hodgkin's lymphoma or non-Hodgkin's or some form of sarcoma. Is it just breast? And then I
Hmm.
realized, okay, no, I have to expand this to cancer patients and survivors in general. Now
Right.
we're seeing all of these different types of cancers, all of these different individuals reaching out because they're developing lymphedema. We know studies have shown 82% of breast cancer patients will be
Hmm.
affected by lymphedema. We
Yeah.
have organizations like the National Lymphatic Network. We have the Lymphatic Education Research Network, LEARN. We have Susan G. Komen Hotline. We have the American Cancer Society. We have Blue Cross Blue Shield. I am naming large institutions that have listed the Live Today Foundation as their only resource for getting free compression garments. Now, if all of
Hmm.
these organizations are listing my little old grassroots organization
Hmm.
as a resource, that means there's a lot of people out there that needs this.
Right.
Therefore, these
Absolutely.
major organizations need to be sending grants to organizations like mine,
Yeah.
not sending
Absolutely.
patients. I mean, at some point, the funds will dry up.
Yeah.
So either we have to have that awareness about lymphedema and make grant dollars available so that patients like you and myself
100%.
can get these garments for free since our insurance companies are not covering it. Or should say not an or, and our health care systems need to make monitoring for lymphedema
Yeah.
commonplace. As
Absolutely.
soon as you get diagnosed with cancer, we're monitoring you for lymphedema. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about
Yeah.
it. Just like you get
Yeah.
scheduled every Monday for your chemo or every day daily for your radiation, then every 3 months, for the first 3 years, you're going to be monitored for lymphedema, then every 6 months for you. So there needs to be something automatically in place. Now,
100%.
Michael, men don't share their lymphedema stories.
Yeah.
Um, what message would you offer for them?
Um, well, lymphedema sucks, plain and simple. Um, and as you just said, there's a lack of information about lymphedema. There's a lack of research. There's a lack of effective treatment options for this condition. But I feel that for men, it's a little bit more isolating because lymphedema is traditionally linked to breast cancer. So most of the resources that I found um, were geared towards women. Um, Men are not necessarily included in lymphedema conversations from what I'd been researching. Um, and I mean, at the end of the day, what are our treatment options for lymphedema? Compression stockings. Most men are not jumping at the bit to wear stockings, especially not in public. Um, I mean, I'm a very active guy. I can't wear a compression stocking at the gym. I can't wear it to play sports or go bike riding or go on a date. I mean, and you said with the oven mitt, how do you explain an unsexy medical garment to somebody you just brought home and be like, "Oh, I hope you don't mind. I've got this, one stocking on, but it's okay. It's cool." So, you know, For me, the hardest part of it is that the beach is my happy place. I'm a summer person. I love the beach. I love wearing Speedos and shorts and tank tops all summer. And all of that's been taken away from me now. I am told that I have to wear compression 23 hours a day. I get an hour off a day for showering and to realize how much my skin hurts from being in compression all day. Um, and that really sucks. I feel like, again, this is a point you made, the medical world doesn't really have any alternatives. And I've never met any doctors who can understand what it feels like for a guy to be charged with wearing stockings for the rest of their life. I don't know if that's sexist or whatever it is. I'm just saying, I'm a guy. I don't want to wear stockings ever. Um, so, what would I tell other men? I mean, you have to know yourself. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to figure out what works for you. I mean, some days it's wearing compression garments when you're at home because you know you're going to be out all the next day and you don't want to be wearing them. You have to figure out a way to live your life and not hide who you are, but also not make your condition worse. And I think there's no perfect formula or right answer. For me, it's been trial and error, and it still continues to be that. Um, but most of all, just like speak up because people need to know that this affects guys also. And it's embarrassing and it sucks and it's all the things that it is, but people need to know about it. And one of the things that I hope to do with my experience is to advocate for lymphedema more and to become more of a voice and more active in it because I didn't have to have lymphedema. I didn't need to have it, but people took that decision away from me. Um, that's what I got to say on that.
That's powerful. And let me take the opportunity to express to everyone, you are right. A lot of times when people hear about lymphedema, it has been in association with breast cancer because people are looking at pictures of an arm or a hand or fingers that are swollen. But let me make this very clear. Lymphedema can occur with any form of cancer. The cancer
Yeah,
itself and any forms of treatment that you may receive could result in damage to your lymph nodes that can lead to lymphedema. Lymphedema occurs in four stages: zero, one, and I'm sorry, zero, one, two, and three. By the time you get to two, meaning you see visible swelling, it's too late. It is
yeah,
chronic. You will have to live with it for the rest of your life. But in
yeah,
stages zero and one, that's why we're talking so much about a lymphedema monitoring program. If you catch
right,
it in those first two stages, it's reversible.
yeah,
So, no matter what form of cancer you may be diagnosed with, your doctors, someone on your team needs to have that discussion of lymphedema before you even start any form of treatment.
right,
And you should have a baseline level monitoring all of your limbs so that you can know the sizes, so that if there's a change in any one, um, individuals can move quickly. And it's funny about what you said about men wearing stockings because
mhm.
women say, oh, if it's lower extremity, it's easier for men because they wear pants anyway. So
Oh,
it's
true.
funny. It depends upon the gender because
Yeah,
women that have lower extremity now, and now they have to always wear compression, their complaint is, I don't get to wear my dresses and show my sexy legs anymore. My pretty
yeah,
legs are gone, and now I have to always wear pants. So,
yeah,
what I hope people are hearing is that this is life changing. It is
yeah,
a life changing completely. So, those individuals who are able to avoid having chronic disabling lymphedema. They are living with a past cancer diagnosis and all of the fears that still come with that, a new pain, a stiff back, or whatever.
Mhm.
There are fears that you have to monitor after a cancer
Right,
diagnosis, but now multiply that times 10 or
right.
20 or 30 or 40. You can put any number of that when you add lymphedema onto it,
Yeah,
especially if you are the primary breadwinner and now your career and profession is gone. You don't
yeah.
look good, you don't feel good. You go from being out to being a hermit. Your life completely changes. Now, Michael, I could not have a fashion designer at my disposal and not ask the question, how could adaptive fashion and creative compression design play a role in healing and advocacy?
I mean, I've been thinking a lot about that, and I mean, you started that with Live Today. I mean, I I've been brainstorming a lot of ideas about how what's the next progression of that. And I mean, if we're being confined to lymphedema, there should be clothes that we like to wear. And I mean, Nike or Lululemon or Adidas, if you're listening, hashtag collaboration. But I think there's a whole market there that's completely untapped. And nobody wants to walk out of the house looking like a frumpa dumpa or a schlub. Everybody wants to feel good about themselves. And there have been countless studies on the psychological impact that fashion can have on a person's well-being, on a person's healing. And if you don't look sick all the time, you're going to feel better, and you're not going to feel like you're such an outcast. I mean, right now, I seriously can only put on sweatpants. I have maybe one pair of jeans that can fit, that I save for when I go see my family or whatever. Um, but I think there could be a whole line of, adjustable arm garments or adjustable leg something. Um, I just feel like there's so much opportunity there, and there's so much need for it. Um, and I don't know where to start on it, but it's got to be done.
I agree. I agree. Before starting, well, actually, at the same time of founding the Live Today Foundation, I was disappointed with the quote unquote nude color garments that were out there.
Hmm.
I treated thousands of patients and nobody ever matched that color.
Sure.
So I got the black ones when it was made available to me. And so I started off by getting together with a couple of people because I was going to focus on making fashion, all types of designs and cool
Hmm.
sleeves and gloves and gauntlets. And I mean, went to the Spanx factory and everything, had this
Oh,
all
wow.
lined up. And then my other two partners, for various reasons, had to pull out, and it was too much for me to do on my own. And so then I
Uh-huh.
reached out to the garment manufacturers that serve as my partners now, and they had expanded their lines, offering, a little bit more schnash to them. And I figured, you know what, I'm not going to duplicate efforts because I was going to do
Sure.
the for-profit side with selling the fashion garments to those that could afford it, and then use some of the proceeds to fund the nonprofit.
Right.
So when the
Right.
for-profit didn't work, I'm like, I still got to do this nonprofit. So I found ways to bring in funds. The first 250 garments I paid for out of my pocket. I can't do
Wow.
that anymore. Um, but to your point, uh, there there does need to be something. 10 million people in the US alone live with lymphedema, whether it's primary or secondary cancer related or secondary
Hmm.
to some other condition. 10 million.
Yeah.
This is a golden opportunity. Hashtag
100%.
collaboration. Michael Kilada, Dr. Sheri Prentiss live today. Come on.
Absolutely.
Come on. And all you need is a couple of spokespeople to be in a garment that makes them
Hmm.
feel whole again,
Yeah,
it could sell itself. So now,
absolutely.
wrapping up, I can't believe I mean, it's only been a little while.
I mean, I've been jabbering a lot, but
No, but it's just too much to talk about because this is just massive.
yeah.
If someone is listening here and they may be feeling hopeless, unseen, or what have you, what parting words do you want to leave with the audience? Whether or not it's addressing somebody who's feeling hopeless or unseen, or it's just something else on your heart that you
Uh,
want to express, please share it.
I just want to say that you're not alone.
Wow. Wow.
I just want to say that,
Yeah.
things can be really
That's
ugly
perfect.
sometimes and
Yeah.
dark sometimes, but you have to just close your eyes and take a deep breath and slow your mind for a minute. And you're going to find the strength to move on. And you're going to find that there are still good people in this world who care. And, there's an old saying that says it can't rain forever. And that's my parting wish for everybody, that it doesn't rain forever.
Wow. Michael, your story is a reminder that lymphedema doesn't discriminate and that behind every diagnosis is a person with dreams, talents, and dignity. Thank you so much for being
Thank you,
brave enough
Sheri.
to speak when it would have been easier to stay silent. I
Yeah,
believe that in sharing your truth, you're not only reclaiming your power, but also opening the door for others to do
yeah,
the same. Together, we are louder.
that's right.
Together, we live today.
Today.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you to my
Thank you
special
all.
guest, Michael Kilada.
Thank
Guys,
you for
stay
having
tuned.
me.
When you hear this, share this message. We got to get the word out. Blessings until next time.